Is this the moment that all of the world's armies have been waiting for all along? Jungkook ended up speaking directly about Taehyung in the middle of a live broadcast that left millions of people speechless. What exactly transpired that evening? Check out the full story. Also, don't forget, leave your comments, hit like if you get goosebumps reading each sentence, and subscribe to ensure that you don't miss any updates. Have you ever witnessed something that appeared routine on screen? The surface, but it seems as though something larger is shaking behind it. A moment of such tranquility, but it just made my chest feel tight because you know something is going to break. That evening, thousands of eyes were glued to the screens of their phones. Jungkook's face appeared in the dim light of the lamp, his voice soft but trembling. No background music, no script prepared, only a army had never seen eyes like the one sitting by himself's eyes when they looked at the camera. And the moment his millions of hearts worldwide stopped beating as lips began to move. I know you're waiting for me to discuss this, he said quietly, his voice barely audible but powerful enough to penetrate every among the tens of thousands of comments that persisted. A quiet space emerged. The army watching that night knew that something was different. Jungkook is not speaking as an idol who is doing periodic broadcasts. The album is not the issue. There are no rehearsals involved. It's not about touring plans either. This is a more private matter. Something that for years has only revolved in rumors, speculations and rumors that have never received a definitive answer. And that evening, for the first time, Jungkook decided to open a little door that had always been tightly closed. The door about himself and Taehyung. Perhaps some of us have ever asked, why are two people who were previously so close, they now appear to keep their distance? Why is it that they laugh in front of the camera? Feel like it's changed from before? As time changed everything? Or is there something that we never really understand? Jungkook stared at the screen as if he knew that every eye out there was waiting. For instance, honesty. Taking a deep breath, he said, I don't know how to say it. But I believe it's time. The comments on the live broadcast went wild because of that one sentence alone. Even though the word, Taehyung, has not yet been used, everyone is aware of where this conversation is heading. I suppose this the confession you've been waiting for. Is Jungkook finally going to talk about their relationship that used to be so warm but is slowly disappearing from public view? A few seconds. Jungkook smiled later. Not the usual smile. It's a memorable, bitter, and a little worn-out smile. He looked down for a moment, then said in a tone that could no longer be hidden, a lot of people say we've changed, but really, nothing has changed. Sometimes we just need time to understand something deeper than what we see. The sentence hung in the air for a long time, like an echo throughout space and time. There was an emotional struggle going on behind his calm voice, was clearly felt. He does not defend himself, nor does he try to justify rumors. Jungkook is telling a story in an honest way, though his every word feels heavy if he looked at the camera. Again, you know, Taehyung always had a unique way of showing his feelings. Occasionally through jokes, occasionally in silence. I may have misinterpreted too many times myself. It is like a dagger that slowly finds its way into the chests of all who hear it. No one expected that Jungkook would be so forthright in front of millions of individuals. Comments began to flood the screen. What does he mean? Though they argue, is this the end of something? However, Jungkook remained silent for a while, allowing the noise pass. He took a small sip of water, then continued with a lower tone. Our relationship. It's not easy to explain. The outside world sometimes makes hasty judgments without knowing. It's actually taking place in the shadows. I'm not angry, tough. I get that. You love us. You wish to learn the truth. However, there are a few things that can only be comprehended by first-hand experience. That evening, behind a screen that displayed his calm face, there was someone who was struggling between secrecy and the desire to be honest. Jungkook is aware that a single sentence can set off a significant storm in cyberspace. But he also knew that continuing to remain silent would only make the storm worse. Then, abruptly, he called the name in a tone that was barely audible. That one word, Taehyung, was all that was needed to the entire comment takes a pause, as though the entire world is literally holding its breath. Jungkook fixed his gaze on as if he were cradling something he couldn't lift. I believe he is aware of my ongoing respect for him. Maybe, even though we haven't been together much recently, that doesn't mean that nothing has changed. Only our existence now goes in a different way, but that doesn't mean we're distant at heart. The stipulation is like a piece of a puzzle that, in the end, starts to make up the whole picture or maybe even helps complete another puzzle. Because how can two people who are so close to one another be seen from a great distance and still understand one another? Without words. Perhaps the answer lies in Jungkook's blank stare before he continues. Sometimes I want to go back in time to a simpler time when we could laugh without thinking about who is watching, who is commenting. But I also know everything that changes is not without cause. Things that once seemed to last forever change as we mature, learn, and change. Then he paused. Soft background music began to sound faintly in the background of the broadcast, whether intentional or not, it contributed to the evening's mood of sadness. You know, he said. Quietly, I remember the first time we sat together just to talk about a dream, about the stage. About the future and things that seemed impossible at the time. Taehyung always said, Jungkook, one day people will see who we really are. Not only their idols but also real people who can be wrong, can be fearful and fragile. Moreover, those words came to life that night. Jungkook turned his head away as if remembering something that not even the camera could capture. He has always held the belief that integrity important, she went on to say. However, to be honest, there are times when it hurts because telling the truth, you also have to be ready to lose something. The same observation was made by army members worldwide. Is this? How are they? Are you sorry, Jungkook? Is their friendship over at this point? However, none of those remarks were answered. Jungkook just stared at the camera for a long time until he finally smiled again. Ah, smile with meaning, but also with wounds that haven't completely healed. You are aware, he said it at last. I never hated her. I just couldn't. Sometimes people judge too quickly without knowing what I really feel. I am tough. I always pray for him every time I see him on screen, on stage. Anywhere because a portion of me remains with him there. The live environment was undergoing a shift from informal conversation with something that is almost spiritual. It appeared as though the army that was watching were not their idols spoke, but this person was the first to open his heart. The comments keep coming in, flow. We cried. Jungkook, please do not be depressed. Taehyung must be aware that the army is present. However, the night didn't stop there. Jungkook gave the impression of trying to convey something significantly greater than merely a personal connection. Despite not being, he had a small microphone in his hand, singing. Do you understand why I decided to speak tonight? He said it at last. Because I experience as though I've been silent too long. It sometimes feels like you are betraying your own emotions. Everyone was shaken to their core by that sentence. There is no room for another interpretation. Jungkook had been continued, speaking from a very deep place in his heart. I know a lot of you are worried. However, Taehyung is one of the best people I've ever met, and I want you to know that, and I'll never let anyone ruin it. Jung's voice trembled at the end of his sentence, but he kept looking straight into the camera as if to make sure everyone watching was actually hearing him. He has a side that maybe not everyone understands, but I get it and that's enough for me. He chuckled, a little as if trying to break the silence, but all no laughter is just another way to hold. I cried back. You know, he said again, living in a world like this where our every step is monitored causes us to sometimes forget who we are. He is it. He always reminds me to be honest. Even though it frightens me. In that very moment, a lot of people shed a lot of tears. Jungkook, who has always been regarded as strong, upbeat, and composed, appears fragile in front of millions of people. Sometimes I feel guilty, she whispered. Not because there is something wrong, because I am unable to express my true feelings to you. The world judges too quickly. Then, without warning, I said something that left everyone speechless. I keep all of my previous messages. The sentence caused a long silence. Everyone knows Jungkook would never talk like that unless he really felt the need to. The atmosphere also becomes even more intense from there. He began to tell about their early days in the hostel, about the nights of training until dawn, about laughter. and shedding of tears that were never captured on film. Like a piece of the puzzle, each sentence the past that begins to form a whole story, the story of two young people who grew up together in the spotlight of the world but lost the space to become ordinary people. Occasionally it is our time to stop, she said quietly, so we can talk to him in person, without cameras, without judgment. Just two people who have dreamed the same thing. Army kept writing sentimental comments. Numerous wrote, we don't need an explanation. We simply want you to be content. But Jungkook isn't done yet. He looked at the screen, smiled faintly, and said, I know he's watching this. Therefore, if an is visible, I just want to say I never forget. The entire fandom was shaken by that sentence. Some cried, while others remained silent, others penned. This is not just an ordinary life. A confession is pending here. And in that instant, there was no longer any denying that that night, something big had changed. The world heard something it was only able to guess. Now spoken directly from the heart of a Jungkook. The dark screen. After that live broadcast still leave a shadow in the minds of millions of people. Comments and video snippets, and screenshots spread like a tidal wave across social media in seconds. Using Twitter, the names of Jungkook and Taehyung rank among the top trending worldwide. What happened recently? Wrote a Brazilian user. I finally spoke. But why does it feel so heavy? Wrote another from Korea. None of the army could sleep that night. The world seemed to pause to consider the significance of every word Jungkook said while I was inside the HYB headquarters is still in effect. A few of the employees were seen going in and out of the room with tense expressions. The phone rang endlessly. Local media were informed by a manager who did not wish to be identified that the atmosphere in the office night was uncharacteristic. They were aware that a huge wave had been created by one live Jungkook broadcast, that would be challenging to manage. There were rumors among employees that an emergency meeting was being held, called shortly after the broadcast's conclusion. I didn't tell anyone before, said one of the staff members in the editing room, observing the live. We thought it was just like every other live show. But our room fell silent as soon as I started talking about Taehyung. Now the question is this a form of courage or a step that will lead to great consequences? No one is 100% certain, but all agreed. Jungkook had changed something that night. Meanwhile, on social media, thousands of reaction videos have sprung up. In the United States, the army made a long th read for interpreting Jungkook's facial expressions as he mentioned Taehyung's name. There are those who enlarged the screenshot to show a small tear in the corner of his eye, when he declared, I despise him. He said, I dislike him. It's more than just a sentence to them. It was a confession that broke the line between idol and human. However, the silence added to the stress of the situation. There are no new posts on Instagram, no stories, no tweets, and not a single indication that he used any apps that night. Fans waited, speculated, and developed their own ideas. Did you see that live? Is he aware of Jungkook? Declared his name. Have they ever spoken together? The Korean media then began writing a few hours later, articles with provocative titles. Are Jungkook and Taehyung in conflict? Is Jungkook's confession a sign of an emotional split? And one even wrote HYB under pressure following a contentious live. Reporters lined the street in front of the HYB building the following morning. They waited for anyone who could comment, but none of the representatives showed up as if the whole. The company agreed to remain silent while the storm passed. But the storm is only getting bigger. 1. By one clips from the broadcast began to circulate on TikTok. It is edited by some with sad music. Others create narrative versions with translations in different languages. Comments such as, I cried seeing Jungkook's honesty. And it has nothing to do with gossip. It's about human sense. Forget the comment column. The most bizarre thing then transpired. Taehyung's official account is suddenly active. He only wrote one sentence in his story, not much else. Also, I never forget. Suddenly, the world exploded. This simple sentence was taken, dissected, and used as material for thousands of theories. Is it an immediate response to Jungkook? Are they at peace now? Or is it just a sign of something deeper that only the two of them understand? All over the world, armies are turning notifications back on, making sure they don't miss anything. The media started to rush for internal sources. HYB was having a discussion about how, according to a dispatch journalist, to deal with this sudden emotional situation. They are concerned that if they make a mistake, it could cause discord among fans, but how can you manage the emotions of millions of involved are two figures loved by the whole world? Among all the chaos, one thing became clear.
Jung did not regret what they had done. In a training session that was recorded by a staff member, Esime that is. I just want to be honest, he said quietly to one of his colleagues. I've been putting off a lot of things too long. I knew that his words that night had caused a domino effect, music.